السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى. أما بعد. Last time the tafsir that was done with Mufti Abdullah left off at the end of the discussion in Surah Maryam with regards to Yahya alayhi salam, the advices, some of the advices and the description that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions with regards to Yahya alayhi salam. Now, Allah mentions another pious individual as well as a prophet, and He describes their qualities and an incident that occurs with regards to them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts off, says, وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ مَرْيَمَ. And remember, the mention of, remember the qissa, the story that was mentioned in the kitab, in the Quran, of Maryam radiallahu anha. Now, very important we understand, because of some of the discussions that will come later on, that who is a Nabi and who qualifies as a Nabi. The ulama, they have mentioned various qualities of the Anbiya. Some qualities are specific and unique to Anbiya, and those are three. They mention one, which is the selection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One is that they are selected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself, and it is not something which a person can earn, like go up in level to the extent that now I have unlocked or I have reached, I have, allowed myself to reach the potential of being the Nabi, right? Even if there was such a thing, but still along with that there would have to be istifa, selection, choice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala coming to that individual. right? This is something which is unique. With all aspects, right? With all aspects, there's a certain type of selection, a process, a level that a person has to be at, right? But with regards to Anbiya, yes, there are special qualities and features with regards to them, but there is an additional aspect which is the selection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is attached to them. There is a different type of selection which is there for Sahaba, right? Even them. It's not that you reach a certain level, now I'm along with the Sahaba now. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned this in the hadith, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He scanned and He selected from the children of Adam alayhi salam the best of them. He chose the best of them, and then He made them into the Anbiya. He selected them to be the Anbiya. So this was one choice. There was a scanning that took place. He found the best arwah, the best souls, the best beings, and He selected them to be the Anbiya. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again in the hadith Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did another scan. Right? He looked again amongst the arwah of Adam alayhi salam, from those that were left. And after the Anbiya were chosen, now the next best. And He said that these were selected to be my companions. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions, right? Yani the Sahaba of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And these are also of the highest level. That's why we hear that regardless of how righteous a person may be, how hard he may work with regards to attaining the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and righteousness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will never even get close to, if there were to be such a thing as the lowest Sahabi, the person still couldn't reach that level. If there was something such as the lowest Sahabi, right, or whatever would be categorized as something of that nature, right? We know they are the highest caliber, right? As we know from this, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, they're all of the highest caliber, right? But of course, yes, within them there are certain ranks and levels, right? Even within the Anbiya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that we have given priority to some of them. تِلْكَ الرُّسُلُ فَضَّلْنَا بَعْضَهُم. We have given priority and superiority to some of them, preference to some of them over the others. For example, we know the Prophet ﷺ, he was of the highest level. And then within them we have the ulul azmi min ar-rusul, right? The 5 highest Anbiya, right? And so on, right? And then within the Sahaba as well, we have the Khulafa al-Rashidin, the Ashra Mubashara, the Ashab al-Badr, and so on. These are the levels within the Sahaba. Now, within the Sahaba, now if we were to look, if there was, let's say there was the lowest level, which would be a very high level, but still the lowest level amongst the Sahaba. A person, the most righteous person, a non-Sahabi, who is the most righteous, still can't even reach that level. Right? So this is from the choice and selection that is done by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another aspect, another quality that is mentioned of the Anbiya is the aspect of isma. Isma, asama ya'simu, means to protect. Right? Yani they are protected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the protection given to them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are protected from committing any sin. And this is a quality which is unique to the Anbiya. A quality which is also unique to the Anbiya. There is a selection of the Anbiya which is unique to them. There is this protection also that is given to them, which is also unique. What does that mean? That from the time that they were born until the time that they pass away, whether that is before prophethood or after prophethood, before bulugh, yani as a child, or after bulugh, they still were protected from all aspects of sin and disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why is this important? Because if it were to be such that they had disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they had done something contrary to the liking of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sin, so then the people who they were sent as prophets to, their nation, could then raise a finger towards them and say that you were also involved in this activity, right? For example, the Prophet is coming and telling them not to commit shirk, right? And na'udhu billah, the qawm would say, you were also involved with us. Just till yesterday you were doing the same actions that we were doing now. Now you think that you're someone special and you're coming to us, right? So this is another quality. This is another quality of the Anbiya. And then there are some qualities which are not necessarily unique to them, right? But they are found amongst other individuals as well, right? Like they are the most righteous, the smartest of the time. They are also of the most noble status. I mean, they come from noble family, noble background, right? So other people can also be other individuals, yani from other nations, as compared to the people of that own nation. A person can be considered the most brightest, most smartest, most noble, right? So these are qualities that can be found amongst other individuals. But one quality specifically which I want to mention with regards to this discussion is the aspect that all Anbiya are from the men, not women, right? No woman was selected as a Nabi. No woman was selected as a Nabi. We have to understand that one of the most crucial aspects of the Nubuwah is to go out and call, right? Is to go out and carry out the aspect of da'wah, talking to each individual, calling them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And this is something, yani going and calling, influencing, it is an aspect which if we look into and take into consideration all the various aspects with regards to our lifestyle that Islam has shown us, that this is something which is most appropriate for a man, that they go out and they speak to other men, that they call them, and those men go and they work on their families, right? They have the responsibility, they have the authority, and this is something which is the most practical, the most suitable thing, and that also preserves and ensures that there is haya, that there is protection of the women, and rather than them standing and people looking at them, people listening to them, so there's protection from that aspect as well, right? But also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions himself, right? وَلِلْرِجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ. There is some superiority given in that aspect as well, right? That they were selected, that the potential of nubuwah is found within the man, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed it within that, right? So now, the purpose of mentioning this is that we understand and we remember that Maryam radiallahu anha was not a prophet, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, she was a pious individual, a pious slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had selected for a very special purpose, and she fulfilled that in the best manner possible, right? But she was not a Nabi. She was not a prophet. This is something that should be clear to us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions وَذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ Maryam, and remember the story of Maryam radiallahu anha, which is found in the book. And what specific incident is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala referring to? إِذْ انْتَبَذَتْ مِنْ أَهْلِهَا مَكَانًا شَرْقِيًّا. When intabada, she distanced herself, she secluded herself, min ahliha, from her family, makanan sharqiyya, towards in the eastern direction, right? So firstly, why did she distance herself? We have to remember initially that first of all, right, the discussion that took place last week or before with regards to Zakaria alayhi salam. Zakaria alayhi salam was the uncle, Mamu, right? Maryam radiallahu anha's mother's brother, so maternal uncle, right? Zakaria alayhi salam was the maternal uncle, the Mamu of Maryam radiallahu anha, right? And at the time when Maryam radiallahu anha was being born, right, her mother had taken an oath that she would dedicate, and she had already made this oath before, right, that whatever child is born, I'm going to dedicate him for the sake of this deen, right? Yani for the sake of ibadah, for the sake of whether that is da'wah or ibadah. But now, because of the fact that a girl was born, right, you would expect, and for the sake of da'wah, as we mentioned earlier, that you would be hoping for, and this was the hope of the mother of Maryam radiallahu anha as well, that she would have a son who would now assist and work along with her brother Zakaria alayhi salam and work for the deen, do khidmat of the deen, call towards the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and basically be dedicated for that purpose. But now Maryam radiallahu anha being born changed that plan a little bit. It could not have been, she could not go out for this purpose. So now she was dedicated for the sake of ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? She was in a private space within the place of ibadah was made for her especially, so that she could perform ibadah in a continuous manner. So she was distant, right? She was not with the remainder of her family. She was in a secluded space away from her family for the sake of this ibadah. And while she would do this ibadah, Zakaria alayhi salam would manage her affairs, make sure that all her needs were met, and he would ensure that her food and everything was provided, right? So, and he would check upon her continuously, and there were times where he would come to her, it's mentioned in the Quran, right? He would come to her and he would find, out of season fruit or, unique fruit that were not available at that time or in that area. And he would ask her, where has this come to you? And she would say that, قَالَتْ هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. This is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is subhanahu إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَرْزُقُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sustains whomever He wishes without any account. Right? He gives whomever He wants, whatever He wants. So she was from the very beginning, right? She's coming from a very righteous family. She has been dedicated for the sake of ibadah, and she has excelled very high level in that, such that she is being sustained from the of course everybody's being sustained from the ghaib, but in a manner which would seem peculiar or extraordinary for insan, right? So now this incident taking place to her, right, is not something that can be considered too far-fetched, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would choose such an individual for this purpose. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions فَاتَّخَذَتْ مِن دُونِهِمْ حِجَابًا. So she had taken and she had separated herself and distanced herself. She had taken hijab, yani she had covered herself from them, yani in a separate space, in a separate room. And فَأَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْهَا رُوحَنَا. So we sent our ruh to her. And by ruh we're referring to Jibreel alayhi salam. فَأَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْهَا رُوحَنَا. We sent, and literally translating our spirit, and this ruh is being attributed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically, not because it's referring to like some soul or that of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, this ruh is referring to, it's a ruhani thing, right? From an aspect of light, which the Anbiya are made from, but is being attributed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a means of honor and sharaf. That He belonged to us, right? This ruh that we had sent down, He belonged to us, and we sent them. He belonged to us, He came from our side. فَتَمَثَّلَ لَهَا. So He took the form of mithal, right? Mithal is the example or the form of something. تَمَثَّلَ, He adopted the form of, for her sake, He adopted the form of بَشَرًا سَوِيًّا. And bashar, a man, sawiyya, somebody who is made and formed in a most perfect manner. Sawi, mustawi, something which is balanced, something which is equal. So, you hear like when it comes to like aspects of beauty and attractiveness, they'll mention that a person has a symmetric face and a symmetric body, the proportion of the various body parts are good. So now this is sawiyya, right? Something which is balanced and there is proportion, there is symmetry within that, right? So now there was an aspect of beauty within that itself. And Jibreel alayhi salam, he would take the form of insan many times, even to come and visit the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And oftentimes, more often than not, he would take the form of Dihya Kalbi radiallahu anhu, who was known to be a very handsome, very attractive Sahabi. Right? Jibreel alayhi salam would come in his form to even visit the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But now, why come in this specific form to Maryam radiallahu anha? Right? Jibreel alayhi salam would come in his original form. He would be shown in his original form to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in some instances. Sometimes he would come physically in the form of an insan. Other times there was some wahi that would come down directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in various forms, as Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions in a hadith, right? But why was this specific form chosen for her? Because of the fact that she is not she doesn't have the level of the Nabi, the strength of the Nabi, and the preparedness of a Nabi, right? A Nabi is used to these situations, right? Just a human appearing out of nowhere is already a frightening situation, right? A frightening matter that somebody out of nowhere appears in front of you, and so you're gonna get scared, right? But now to appear in his original form and speak in his original manner would not only be extremely frightening for her, but at the same time she might not be able to comprehend that speech. So now to send him in the form of insan was most suitable, right? Most appropriate for the situation. So فَأَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْهَا رُوحَنَا فَتَمَثَّلَ لَهَا بَشَرًا سَوِيًّا. He took the form of a basharan sawi, a perfectly sculpted or perfectly formed individual, man. قالت إني أعوذ بالرحمن منك. And from this we see the values and the nature of Maryam radiallahu anha, that as right when this happened, her first thing is أعوذ بالرحمن منك. I seek the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from you. I seek the protection of the Rahman from you. And in kunta taqiyan, if you are, and we did this word came in the last portion as well, right? Taqi, somebody who is muttaqi, right? Muttaqi, a person who adopts taqwa, right? Fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you are one who adopts the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you also should seek the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and stay away from me. Right? That's what she's saying. Not that I seek the protection of Allah if you fear Allah. No. I seek the protection of Allah, but if you fear Allah, you should also do the same and stay away from me. Right? I don't want you to come any closer. You need to stay away. قال إنما أنا رسول ربك. So Jibreel alayhi salam responds and he says, don't worry, do not be afraid. I'm not here to harm you. I don't have any ill intent towards you. Rather, I am merely the messenger of my Lord. Right? Rasul over here is in its linguistic meaning. Generally, Rasul is somebody who brings a message. Yes, Risala. He brings a message. And in the Shari'i context, we understand it to be one who has received the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and is thereafter conveying it to the people. Right? This is in its most linguistic meaning, that is just to bring and then convey a message. So a messenger, a general messenger. That إِنَّمَا أَنَا رَسُولُ رَبِّكَ, I am the messenger of your Lord. I am here to convey a message from your Lord. And beyond that, لِأَهَبَ لَكِ. And the intent and the goal from this, the outcome of this will be that لِأَهَبَ لَكِ, so I can gift to you. Ahaba, wahaba, yahibu means to gift. And of course this gift is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but through the means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent Jibreel alayhi salam to convey this message. So now it is as if he is the one who is doing it, right? He's attributing it to himself, but he intends that it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that I may give to you غُلَامًا زَكِيًّا, a ghulam, a boy, zakiyya, and this is from the same root letters as zakah, right? Zakat, the zakat that we give, which what's the true meaning, like the original meaning of that? To purify, right? Zakiyya, somebody who is purified. Yani he is pure from sins. As we mentioned before, the anbiya are free from sin, right? They're protected from sin from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this individual will also be free of sin, free of all sorts of disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will be a very good individual, very righteous individual. غُلَامًا زَكِيًّا, a pure child. قالت أَنَّا يَكُونُ لِي غُلَامٌ. She said, أَنَّا. So أَنَّا is used to ask about these hala, how can something happen, but it is one which has some sort of magnitude to it. That how can this affair even take place, right? That how can this happen? أَنَّا يَكُونُ لِي غُلَامٌ. how can a boy be for me? Yani, how can I give birth to a child, a boy? How can I have a boy, a child? وَلَمْ يَمْسَسْنِي بَشَرٌ, when a man has not touched me. When a man has not touched me. And then she emphasizes that you know, the impossibility of this, right? وَلَمْ أَكُ بَغِيًّا, and I am also not an immoral woman, an immoral person, that I involve myself in, you know, adultery and disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such that this would be the result, the outcome, right? How can this happen? This is impossible, right? From the aspect of the nature that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the dunya, that this is something which is not possible based on the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قَالَ كَذَلِكَ, he said, just like that. Yani, it's going to happen exactly as I am saying. It's going to happen exactly as I am saying. قَالَ رَبُّكَ, and your Lord has already stated this. قَالَ رَبُّكَ هُوَ عَلَيَّ هَيِّنٌ, that this is very easy upon me. Yani, it is very easy upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah does not require these means. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not bound by this sunnah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. Majority of the things that we see happening within the alam, within the universe, are all within or follow the pattern of the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The patterns that are well established within the dunya by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But to go against that, it is not one of the limitations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is beyond those limitations. Allah is free from that. All these, the physics and you know, how a child is born and so on, even these processes, these methods are created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are the makhluk of Allah. So how can He be limited by those makhluk? Allah is the khaliq. He created not only the things, but He also created the methods and the procedures within those things. So how can He be limited to that? Allah is free from all that. Huwa alayya hayyin. This is something which is very easy upon me, yani upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not upon Jibreel alayhi salam, although he is speaking, but he is conveying this from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He cannot be, no aspect of creation is dependent upon Jibreel alayhi salam. It is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is our aqeedah, our belief. Huwa alayya hayyin. This is very easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there's also another very important aspect. وَلِنَجْعَلَهُ آيَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَرَحْمَةً مِنَّا. This is a very important matter that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intends to carry out, which is so that this individual, this child that will be born, so that we may make him a sign for the people. Yani like a leader, right? A sign, you see a sign and you follow that in order to reach your goal, your destination, right? So him being a sign is like a role model that we follow after. Something that is bringing some information and guidance to us, that if we adopt and follow this sign, this will lead us to our maqsood, which is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ayatan linnas. And not just that, but this is also one of the mu'jizat, one of the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of the fact that He is free, right? Again, highlighting that this is something which is different from the natural course of things. And this has to be something which is done by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only could this have come about, right? Generally, when you see things happening very, in a regular manner, unless a person gives it thought, it won't come to him that this is something this is just normal, right? But now you see something extraordinary happening, your mind has to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's forced to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for me, that I must take heed. I must, adopt whatever it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects me to do. Wa rahmatan minna, and also a means of rahmah. Also a means of rahmah. The people, this is mentioned, right, within Surah Ali Imran, that there was much difficulty. There was much difficulty within the deen of the Yahud, of the Bani Israel, right? The Sharia that was there from the time of Musa alayhi salam, and the difficulty that part of which they brought upon themselves. by disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continuously, by questioning the ahkam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they brought this difficulty upon themselves. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Isa alayhi salam to get rid of some of that difficulty, bring ease, be a means of rahmah for the people, right? وَمُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيَّ مِنَ التَّوْرَاتِ, right? The ayah that I referred to, that so I'm going to affirm and remind you of the truthfulness of that which was found in the Tawrat. وَلِيُحِلَّ لَكُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي حُرِّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ, and so that I may create and state the hillah, the permissibility of بَعْضَ الَّذِي حُرِّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ, some of those things which had been made haram upon you, and to reinforce those things within your mind that these are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَجِئْتُكُمْ بِآيَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ, and I have brought some signs from your Lord as well, right? So this is also a means of rahmah. Some aspects of those that were impermissible before made halal upon you now, but also the presence of a nabi, the presence of a righteous individual is a means of rahmah in and of itself. That the barakat, the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon that individual will not only stay limited to him, but it will benefit those around him as well, right? Will benefit those around him as well. Being in the presence of a righteous individual, and more importantly a nabi, will automatically be a means of rahmah and blessing for those people. وَكَانَ أَمْرًا مَقْضِيًّا, and this, what I have just stated to you, Jibreel alayhi salam saying, what I have just stated to you, كَانَ أَمْرًا مَقْضِيًّا, it is a matter maqdi. Qada has already taken place about it. It has been decreed and it is meant to happen. There's no turning away from this. There's no discussing it any further. This is going to happen. وَكَانَ أَمْرًا مَقْضِيًّا فَحَمَلَتُ, and as he mentioned this, right, that Jibreel alayhi salam, he blew into her sleeve, and some say, in some opening, right, on the side, but generally you find that he blew into her sleeve, and right away she became pregnant and reached very close to the stage where she would now give birth. فَحَمَلَتْهُ. So, and over here that part of the blowing is not mentioned, but this فَحَمَلَتْهُ, then she became pregnant. Right? It was not something which was a delay. The fa in the Arabic language comes for something that's happened very soon after. Right? Very soon after, almost instantly after. This is what the fa gives the meaning. فَانْتَبَذَتْ بِهِ مَكَانًا قَصِيًّا. So, فَانْتَبَذَ, intabada, again we already did this, right? That she distanced herself even further now. So she left that area of ibadah and she went further away. مَكَانًا قَصِيًّا, to a distant place. فَأَجَاءَهَا الْمَخَاضُ إِلَى جِذْعِ النَّخْلَةِ. So, makhad, the pain, right, that comes about due to the pregnancy, right? Aja'aha, forced her to come to basically to stop at and to seek the support of jid'in nakhla, to the trunk of a date palm tree. Nakhla, jid', the trunk, and nakhla, a date palm tree. قالت يا ليتني مت قبل هذا, and she said, oh ya laytani, oh I wish, mittu qabla hadha, I had died before this. Now, this is something that may be worrisome to us, right? Because we know that from the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ that this is not something that we should do. To ask for and call for one's death. To ask for and call for one's death and hope for it is not something that is desirable. In fact, it is something which is disliked, that we should avoid. So how come she's making such a statement and she's calling out for her, her own death? So the ulama mentioned that the purpose for this is that not only one, that the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be attributed to her, right? Because the people are not, at the very first instance, when people see something which they could use to blame or find fault in an individual, they will go to that. And especially in this type of situation, when she is somebody who is well known to be, she's the niece of a Nabi, she has been designated for the sake of ibadah, and it is very well known that in that situation she would not be getting married, and she has not gotten married. So for this, with this understanding, right, and this information in mind, a person, his first thought will be that this was through an act of disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Na'udhu billah. Right? So out of the fear and the shame of being accused of disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in this very vile manner, she wished that this blame wouldn't come upon her at all. This blame, this accusation wouldn't come upon her at all. And some mentioned that even beyond that, that now you have to understand that if there is, this act involves two individuals. So now this act will be attributed upon another individual as well. And he may even be accused of forcing himself upon her. So now a punishment could be brought about with regards to that individual. So there's fitna, which is involving her with regards to some accusation that could be done towards her, some accusation that could be done towards another individual, and punishment could be carried out upon him, and fitna that could take place within the people. All these are situations in which a person may come to the conclusion that it's better that I wasn't alive at this point. It's better that I wasn't even alive, such that this situation would even come about. Such that this situation wouldn't come about at all. We know from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that if a person is feeling, he is in a state where he feels very, so to say, depressed, or he is, feels helpless and despondent with his life, that even then we don't make dua of death upon us. We make the dua that, oh Allah, keep me alive as long as you find that life is good for me. Allahumma ahyini ma kanat al-hayatu khayran li. Oh Allah, keep me alive as long as you feel that life is good for me. And take me away if you think that death is better for me. And take me away if you, oh Allah, at this point think that death is better for me. That if beyond this point, that I will get involved in disobedience, I will get caught and trapped in some fitna, yes, or I will be taken away from the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if this is an aspect of shar, something which is not good, right? So if that is the case, then take me away, right? Take me away in that case. In other hadith as well, right? Similar, or other ad'iyah, a similar meaning is understood, right? اللهم إني أسألك فعل الخيرات وترك المنكرات وحب المساكين وأن تغفر لي وترحم وإذا أردت فتنة في قوم, and if you intend to put fitna upon a specific, on a group of people, يعني in where I am, or nearby me, or somewhere where I may get involved. وإذا أردت فتنة في قوم فتوفني غير مفتون, so take me away غير مفتون, without being tested, without being put to trial. Why? Only Allah knows what would be my state on the other side. Will I make it out of this fitna? Will I be able to protect myself from this fitna and stay close to the deen, stay upon the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or will I be taken away from that and get trapped into this fitna? So this is another hadith and another dua taught to us by the Prophet ﷺ with regards to this. But of course, we should be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the time and the life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And we should, even if we are in a difficult situation, we should try to rectify the situation to the best of our ability and never become hopeless in the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّهُ لَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. The becoming hopeless from the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a quality which is unique to the disbelievers. A quality unique to the disbelievers. قالت يا ليتني مت قبل هذا. She said at this point that يا ليتني مت قبل هذا. Oh, I wish that I was dead before this. I had died before this whole ordeal even took place with me. وَكُنْتُ نَسْيًا مَنْسِيًّا. And I was Nasyan mansiya. Mansi is from nasya yansa is maf'ul, right? Which means something which is forgotten, right? Something which is forgotten. But nasyan refers to something which is so has such such little value, such little importance, that it is generally forgotten. That it is generally forgotten, right? Something small, something very like doesn't have much benefit, something that doesn't have much use. People don't really give it much thought, and it's very easily forgotten, right? Like some small little thing, taking a trash bag, for example, something which is very simple. You may forget to do that, right? You won't forget your phone, right? You won't forget your keys, but you very easily forget to take a trash bag. You very easily forget to do something which is very small, very insignificant, right? So I was something completely insignificant, and it was insignificant and then even forgotten. Sometimes those insignificant things you actually remember, right? Insignificant and then forgotten as well. فَنَادَاهَا مِن تَحْتِهَا أَلَّا تَحْزَنِي. So he called out, and this he is referring to because Isa alayhi salam is not born yet. So he calls out, yani Jibreel alayhi salam calls out, min tahtiha, from a location which was slightly lower than her. Yani perhaps she is at an elevated platform and he is below her. Min tahtiha, from below her, yani from a place, a position which is slightly below her. Alla tahzani, that do not be grieved. Do not go into the state of grief. That, why? قَدْ جَعَلَ رَبُّكِ تَحْتَكِ سَرِيًّا. Your Lord has placed beneath you, تَحْتَكِ سَرِيًّا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought you to a very, you would assume that this is a very, ordinary place, or a very, a place that doesn't have much benefit to it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought you to a place and He has placed beneath you Sariyya, a stream that is flowing right next to you, right below you, perhaps directly below her, or again, just like we said with regards to Jibreel alayhi salam, that he was in a location slightly below her, or in a position slightly below her, so something like that, right next to you though, very close to you, tahtaki, right below you, there is a Sariyya, there is a place, a stream that you can drink water from, right? You're in a state of difficulty, you're in a state of thirst, so now you can satiate yourself with this water. وَهُزِّي إِلَيْكِ بِجِذْعِ النَّخْلَةِ, and shake the trunk of this nakhla, this tree that you're leaning on, shake that in your direction, right? إِلَيْكِ, shake that in your direction. تُسَاقِطْ عَلَيْكِ رُطَبًا جَنِيًّا, that it will drop down upon you. رُطَبًا جَنِيًّا, it will fall down, yani it will cause to fall upon you. What? رُطَبًا جَنِيًّا, fresh dates. فَكُلِي وَاشْرَبِي وَقَرِّي عَيْنًا. So now, in this state that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this place that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought you in, is not an average place. Even here, there's rahmah and ease that is being brought for you. So don't worry, don't wish for death. There is some, before there was khayr, there is currently khayr, there will be khayr after that as well. فَكُلِي وَاشْرَبِي, so now eat, kuli, eat, akala, and washrabi, and drink from this water that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought to you. وَقَرِّي عَيْنًا, and cool your eyes, yani come to the state of pleasure and happiness with the decrees that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down upon you. فَإِمَّا تَرَيِنَّ مِنَ الْبَشَرِ أَحَدًا, and if you see from man, yani any individual, from people, human beings, anyone, فَقُولِي إِنِّي نَذَرْتُ لِلرَّحْمَنِ صَوْمًا, so say to them, yani indicate to them that إِنِّي نَذَرْتُ لِلرَّحْمَنِ صَوْمًا, I have taken a vow. Nadartu, to take a vow, to take an oath. لِلرَّحْمَنِ, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the most merciful. صَوْمًا, a fast. And now, generally, within the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, fasting is unique to the form that that the Prophet ﷺ has shown us, right? What we do in the month of Ramadan, that we stay away from food, drink, and relationship. We stay away from that, and of course, the acts of disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But within the acts which are permissible, Within those acts that are permissible, we only stay away from 3 things. But now, within the previous nations, there were other fasts that were permissible for them. One of them being that there would be a psalm, a fast, or technically it wasn't a fast, right? But perhaps it could be coupled with a fast. But this was a situation in which they would refrain from speaking. A situation, right? An oath or a time, a duration in which they would refrain from speaking. So, but this is not, we don't do this, right? This is not for the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ. This is not the psalm that we're told to do. Yes, if there is nothing good to say, as Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, if there's nothing good to say, then you refrain from speaking altogether, right? If there is nothing good to say, don't speak. But in the form of a specific duration that I will not speak from this time to this time, as a form of fasting, as a form of psalm for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this form is not a form of ibadah, right? Staying quiet and refraining from unnecessary talk or disobedient foolish statements and so on. It's something that we're supposed to do anyway, right? But to do this in the form of an ibadah, as a designated ibadah in some time duration, is not something which is found within the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. فَلَنْ أُكَلِّمَ الْيَوْمَ إِنْسِيًّا. So I will not speak to a man, yani a living being today. Right? So this is an ishara, because if she has already taken this oath, so she will not be able to, if she's speaking and conveying that to the people, she should not be doing that with her speech then. So this will be an indication, an ishara that she's going to be doing, that I'm not speaking, right? I'm not going to speak. Inshallah, we'll end here. I was going to mention towards the beginning, and I got carried away a little bit, that with regards to the first ayah, وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ مَرْيَمْ إِذِ انْتَبَذَتْ مِنْ أَهْلِهَا مَكَانًا شَرْقِيًّا, that she secluded herself in an eastern direction. What does that mean? That firstly, this is just it's not something which is like special in terms of ibadah, right? But rather, some ulama mention that the purpose of this, that her going towards the eastern side, is for the sake of the fact that when the sun rises, she will have a lot of sunlight. If the room that is designated for her is towards the eastern side, she will have more sunlight, she will have more light in her room during this time. Right? So it's not something which is like she's secluded towards the direction of the east and she's only doing ibadah towards the direction of the east. Rather, this is more in terms of the sunlight and so on. But perhaps the qibla in the place where she was located, perhaps that was also in the direction of the east. But generally speaking, the ulama, they mentioned that this has to do with the sun and the light, right? So now she was in the eastern direction of the structure that she was within. Inshallah, we'll end here. I don't know, Musa takes questions or so on, but if not, then inshallah. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanallah wa bihamdihi. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون. سلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.